Today we're looking at a few more escapees from Blackstone Fortress, with a stat line and weapons for a couple of Guardian drones. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the tabletop. Today's video comes from a Warhammer community article that I'll link down in the video description below. Basically, we've got the stat lines and weapon profiles for these Guardian drones, and they can be added to any 40k army. Let's take a look at what we've got. So with a lot of these more minor Blackstone Fortress releases, Games Workshop often makes rules for them that make them technically playable in the game of 40k, but not usually something that you'd want to usually take, often due to army construction. There have been a few notable exceptions, such as Daedalus for the Adeptus Mechanicus and Deus Grec for the Tau, both of whom are quite cheap characters and add quite a lot of potential value to their armies. However, the ones that are unaligned have to be included in their own auxiliary support detachments, which in 8th usually wasn't the best idea to waste a detachment slot, and in 9th is actually going to cost you command points. On top of that, if you have any army-wide special rules going on, such as Space Marine combat doctrines, including units like this in your army would break that, so it means it's not always a great idea competitively speaking. Basically, if they're going to be in any way competitive, they have to be really quite strong on their base stats alone. Now at the moment we don't know exactly how they're going to be fielded. I strongly suspect that you'll be able to field them in a pair, as I believe a pair of these come with the Blackstone Fortress expansion Ascension. I wouldn't be surprised if they were elites or something, but it's not impossible that they could be an HQ choice, which I think might mean that they could form, say, a patrol detachment with some spindle drones. It seems they do have some good synergy with these little critters. We know they've got the unaligned keyword, so they will be able to be fielded by basically any 40k army. If we turn our attention to actually look at their stat line now, in general they seem fairly tough, but also relatively slow and not all that dangerous with their weapons. They've got a movement of 5, weapon skill and ballistic skill of 3+, strength 5, toughness 6, 7 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 10 and a 3+ save. With toughness 6 and 7 wounds they're really not all that far away from a dreadnought in terms of toughness, though they are just a little bit slower, moving forward fairly ponderously at 5 inches per movement phase. Their war gear is interesting. They're armed with a Destroyer Pulse and Guardian Salvo launchers. The Destroyer Pulse is a pistol, which means that you can't fire it in the same turn that you fire the salvo launchers. It is unfortunately one or the other and not both. That Destroyer Pulse is basically a short-range las cannon pretty much. It's 18-inch range, pistol 1, strength 9, AP-3 and a flat damage of 4. Not too much to say there, it'll do decently versus heavy armour, and having a reliable flat 4 damage is pretty handy if you do see an enemy vehicle that has less than those wounds left. The Guardian Salvo launchers are 24 inches in range, heavy D6 shots, strength 5, AP-3 and damage 1, so a bit weird and swingy, a little bit better range, probably best at chewing through things like 1 wound, high armour infantry. I'd usually say they're good against tactical marines, but as we know they're going to 2 wounds, so won't be quite as effective against them now. They'll generally get about 1 wound through on average against any space marines. In combat they strike with their manipulator limbs. They're generally fairly all-purpose weapons with AP-2 and damage 2. Again, not the most threatening ever. They'll average about 1 failed save on a marine unit, so maybe kill an intercessor or something each combat phase, but I'd certainly not say that they're dedicated melee units by any stretch of the imagination. Finally, we have one special rule tease for them, which is their Drone Commander special rule. This one essentially buffs spindle drones. These are little 2-wound toughness 4 critters that have a drone pulse, a single-shot 18-inch range pistol that's quite underwhelming when the unit's at full strength. Normally they have a threat level rising special rule, which means that as the drones are destroyed, their pulses get ever more vicious. But basically the Drone Commander special rule just puts all of the spindle drones' shots up to their absolute max mobility right from turn 1. A unit of 4 spindle drones for 65 points in the new edition will be putting out 4 shots at strength 6, AP-3 and damage 4, which could be really quite vicious depending on the target that they fire at. Unfortunately you can't just spam spindle drones. There is a limitation on their datasheet saying you can only have 1 unit of this type in your army, so they are a bit restricted, and you can only use this to buff 1 unit. Still though, if you did manage to get a salvo of these off against some Centurions or something, then you could be taking down a Marine or 2 quite easily. Obviously, to determine if they're good or not, we still need the points cost for these Guardian drones, and the power level would be helpful as well. And it would be a lot better if they could be used as an HQ slot, then we might be able to get them and the spindle drones in one detachment, and not be paying the very painful 2 command points per unit to include them in your army. In general, I think they're just going to be a fun little unit that you can potentially include if you think that the models look cool, but aren't going to be optimised in any real way, just due to that command point cost that you have to pay for them. Even if they're really undercosted, then that could still be problematic. So let me know what you think of the new Guardian drones. Are you going to give them a try out in Warhammer 40k? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. We certainly try and cover all the new rules for 40k as they come out. If you've been enjoying my videos recently and you'd like to help support the channel, I'd just like to mention that I do have an Element Games affiliate link which is down in the video description below. If you're in the UK or the rest of Europe, then Element Games is a discount retailer that stocks lots of Warhammer products. So if you were thinking about ordering in some model soldiers and wanted a bit of a discount, then they're a retailer that I certainly recommend. If you buy something from them after clicking on that link, a very small amount goes to help support Auspex Tactics without costing you any more whatsoever, so it can be a way to help support the channel on purchases that you are already going to make. I also have a very similar link for people in the USA and Canada for Amazon. Again, if you wanted to buy anything off Amazon and wanted to help support the channel, then that link works in basically the exact same way. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.